Good morning. Welcome to the Bison Blueprint morning stream. I'm Josh Trades, and let's take a look at some charts this morning. We've got pretty interesting setup here on the S&P 500. For those of you that have been watching along, we've been tracking this channel here for years and really intensely the last 6 months or so. And we're finally pulling back into that channel as we speak. On this crazy run up that we've had since the end of March. So we've just gone up in a straight line, unrelenting. Every gap has been bought, every dip has been bought, but now we're finally pulling into this trend line. So there's some decisions that have to be made on the S&P 500. And if you'll see here, we blew through every single resistance along the way. We blew through this trend line resistance, through former support turn resistance. This was a 61 fib resistance. We had another trend line here that we blew through. We had a resistance level here. We had a resistance level at all-time highs. So just nothing has been able to stop this rally, but now we're pulling into this very large time frame trend line on the S&P 500. We've got a few signs, technical signs of the rally starting to let up, but so far, all of our signs that the rally has been letting up have not really worked out that well. So if you're in longs, this is just another spot to really start taking profits. This is kind of our final profit taking area for longs. And we've got a lot going on politically that's really going to determine what happens next. So there's the technical side of things, and then there's the narrative side of things to keep in mind. So here, really looking to exit all of my longs or trim them, especially if they're in tech. Tech really led this rally up. I'll show you in a few minutes some signs that tech is starting to get exhausted and what Wall Street's actually doing behind the scenes. But let's talk about some of the early warning signs that we have here that this rally is running out of speed. So here we've got an overbought RSI at 70. Again, that's not a firm reason to exit, but it's just a warning sign. As you can see here, we were overbought and we continued up further. But the second overbought signal was really kind of the end of that rally there. We had an overbought signal here, and it continued to rally for almost a year. So take these kind of overbought RSIs with a grain of salt, but it's an interesting thing to look at. On the MACD, we're getting our first dark green candle here on the histogram. So that's an early warning sign, but we still have a pretty spread out MACD here. But it could be, it's kind of like the beginning of forming a top. One thing you'll notice here on this rally is it's actually been a very low volume rally. Especially here, this was actually the Friday before Easter. It's kind of like a half day, so that one doesn't really count. But when you look at some of the volume here, back here, and some of these moves down, these are very low volume days, and that's not a good sign for this continuing. Now here we're starting to form a really clear divergence on the 4-hour charts. We've got a incredibly overbought RSI at 90. That's when you really have to start paying attention to things, is when these start to get in the 90, 85, 90 range, which it just shows how insane this rally's been. But we've got a MACD and RSI divergence. So to explain that, right here, we've got a lower high. So this high is lower than this, but we've got an equal high on the MACD when you compare these two tops. So here, that means we're starting to run out of steam here. This is a little bit short-term bearish of a look here. But on the RSI, we have something a little different. We have really this confirming strength. So we're getting a lot of mixed signals here at the top with the S&P 500. So interesting to take a look at that. Let's go over to the Qs. we're going to get a similar look there. And really, one final thing on SPY before I switch to the Qs is what I shared in our Discord about a week ago was that I expected price to come up in the 700 to 712 area and just kind of chill out here for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, while it determines whether this is going to continue its short squeeze or break down below this former highs. So expect kind of some bouncing here for a few days, unless a major event happens politically. And there's a few on the horizon. We're going to see a lot of chop in there is my best guess. On the Qs, these are lagging a little bit. It does have some more potential upside to about 675. There's a few tech stocks that have not run as well as the others. So there could be some more upside here as those late joiners join the rally. So look for that to maybe have some more legs, but doesn't necessarily have to here on the Qs. So give you a zoomed out view of that. Looks exactly the same as the S&P. Same thing, just breaking through every resistance along the way. Same look here, RSI, MACD, everything's almost exactly the same on these. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. A couple of things we do every day, and then I've got some really exciting things later. I want to show you, there's a huge short squeeze going on right now that maybe you're not aware of. So I'll show you what I see on that chart. Then I've got 3 charts I really like, no matter what happens with the indexes. That's the nice thing about investing in individual stocks, is that whatever happens to the indexes doesn't really matter that much when you just own individual stocks. So Bitcoin here, we do have a breakout of this trend line. Same look on Ethereum. So looking for a potential retest here of 70,000 for an entry. I don't think that this is going to be a false breakout, but keep that in mind. If this does kind of retreat back to 50 or 60,000, that's possible, but mostly looking for a retest here of 70,000. Same chart here on Ethereum. Breakout. Really want to see this get above 2,500 and retest this 2,000 level. That's a good spot for an entry, but same thing, a false breakout would get us to 1,600. Russell 2000, this one's really been kind of leading the way, has broken above new highs. But then when you look at the Dow, this one's actually been lagging the others and is just pulling into its former highs now. So a little bit of divergence there. This rally was obviously led by tech and less by industrials and things, and some of the things that are in the Dow. So some lag here. We could see some resistance here at 50,000, which is where we're at this morning. Very early to tell, but looks like it's starting to, 50,000 is putting up a little bit of resistance here, but just because there's 2 red candles doesn't mean that it's going to drop from here. So a couple of the Mag 7 stocks. Apple, this one's kind of a late joiner here, has the chance to make a run at maybe 300 or so, has been moving in this channel for quite some time. So late joiner here, going to 300 potentially. Amazon, this one was one of the early runners, starting to settle in at the top of its channel here. Great place to take profits if you own this. Starting to run out of steam as well. Google, one of the strongest names, had a false breakdown, and that really led to it squeezing so strongly here. But it looks like just this morning it did exit this channel. So that's, make sure that's drawn accurately. Yep. So it did exit this channel. So that's a potentially pretty bearish setup on Google. Kind of a head and shoulders forming here. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder here. And these aren't always exactly symmetrical. It's sometimes they can even be triple tops, or the left can be higher than the right, or whatever. Just generally speaking, we've got 3 tops up here looking like a head and shoulders. So looking like a very early stages of a move down. You want to see a confirmation here on Google, but starting to run out of steam up here. Meta, this one did really well, moving off this trend line, but it's starting to put in that early look. And again, we don't want to get faked out by these like early red candles. So looks like it's starting to run out of steam at 700, but to really confirm that, we got to get below 640 on Meta. Microsoft, this one was a late joiner. Not sure how much more momentum this has. I got out of calls late last week at about 410, 412, I think it was. I could have waited for a push above 420, 425, and I didn't want to risk it. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with Microsoft, and that's the reason I got out, is just didn't have a clear direction on it. Could see this running out of steam, could see it squeezing to 460, 550, 650. So that much uncertainty just told me like, hey, let's take our chips off the table and take the win. I think I ended up with a decent profit on that one. NVIDIA, this one's been really squeezing from 160 to 200. But here we're starting to run into some resistance. We've got resistance at 203, which is where it's at right now. And then we've got our all-time highs at 212. So need to see some kind of resistance there for this to lose steam. But again, just false breakdown led to a short squeeze. Common theme on all these names. Tesla, this is one that we alerted last week down here at the bottom of the channel using TSLL, which is the 2X ETF here. So this is up, I don't know, 25% or so. So Tesla, break and retest here. This one's, when I talk about the QQQs and SPY kind of like sitting in that top channel, I think what we're going to see is the tech firms kind of like rotate up there. So Google might be the early bear, Tesla might be the late bull. And they're going to kind of, and as those average out, that'll average out the QQQ to kind of like hold it steady. So Tesla, the late bull here, targets are 450, maybe even 500 and 520 or so. They do have earnings on tomorrow after the market. So that will play a big role in where this goes. And just to note that all of these tech firms do have earnings next week. So something to keep an eye on there. The other two, couple major things to look at here, the dollar index finding a little bit of support here on this retest of this trend line. So need this bullish move in this would be bearish for the market. So not really a super clear sign here. Need to see where DXY wants to go. Take a look at the VIX futures. This has absolutely been crushed here. So this was the start of the rally here on 330. VIX has been absolutely crushed since then. We did have a contract rollover here, this green line. And then if it does break above this 21, that can be bullish for the VIX. Keep an eye on that. What else do we have? We've got, if there's any charts you want me to go over, go ahead and throw those in the chat, and I'll be happy to chart those for you. But with the massive short squeeze that we're seeing right now is car, it's Avis Budget Rent-A-Car. I did some research on this last night, and apparently there are two hedge funds that own over 100% of this combined. And they're able to own over 100% because of some synthetic ways that they can own shares. And so it looks like somebody's trying to squeeze those guys and get them in big trouble. So this has gone from $85 in, what was that, end of February, all the way to a pre-morning high of 723. It's currently sitting at 608. So super volatile, already down nearly $100. Has kind of retraced this whole move ever since 4 in the morning. So crazy stuff here on budget rent-a-cars. And when you're in these short squeezes, you know, a lot of people get so wrapped up When you look at GameStop or AMC, a lot of people that are in these are new to investing. They're not really sure when to get out. The best way to approach that is to use Fibonacci levels, and don't worry about trying to time the exact top. Like if you're up 4x, 5x, 10x, like just take your money off the table and find something else. That's a huge win. But here we've already blown through the all-time highs. So really our next stop here would be this about 800 to 839, which is our 161 fib. So if you're in this, you were looking for one more push there. But again, this is just so ridiculously extended. The daily RSI is at 96. The weekly RSI is at 94. Like once you get into that territory, the end is near. So just be careful if you're in this name. This can't go on forever. Take your win, find something else. I don't think it's going to make it to this 268 fib, but if you want to leave a runner, if you're hell-bent on going for an even bigger squeeze, this is probably the last place I would take 10 or 20% off, is here at about $1,300. So crazy squeeze the last couple days. And it's something I want to talk about with GameStop. This had its huge squeeze back in, 2020? So COVID days, kind of came with the relief checks, went from 64 cents to 120 bucks, and then was immediately crushed all the way down to $8. So this is what you want to avoid with CAR. You don't want to be involved in this candle. So take your profits when you can up here. And then we had a couple more chances at it. GameStop's kind of setting up for another short squeeze here, but this one will never go to these heights again, just because they diluted it so much. It's going to be really hard to move this as much as it did in the past. So if you're looking for short squeezes, AMC and GameStop just aren't going to be it this time around. They've been diluted too much that it's going to be close to impossible to do that on those names. So a couple charts that, actually, before I get into that, let's go pull in my browser here. Before we get into the unusual whales, a couple things on the schedule today. The president is doing a live phone interview on CNBC as we speak, so that will definitely be moving the markets. And then JD Vance is supposed to go to Pakistan for peace talks with Iran, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So keep an eye on that. The market is expecting him to go. If he doesn't and bombs start flying again, not good for the markets. This morning, we had some retail sales came in. Looks like pretty good. Pending home sales later. Not too much big financial news this week. Initial jobless claims is decent. Flash PMI is not a big deal. So not a ton of things that are going to move the market this week in financial news. And then over on insider trading, we'll throw a few of these on the chart later, but we've got a couple of pretty big insider buys, mostly in these new drug companies. So I'll throw those up in a second. But the thing that I wanted to talk about that really stood out to me on the Unusual Whales dashboard. So this is a dashboard I built for the way that I trade. We've got 60 to 270 day bullish calls, and then we've got bearish puts. So we can see where is Wall Street starting to put their money into going long, going short. What are some of the things they're doing, buying leaps on? So longer term plays here. And then we can look at some of the flow alerts if we have time. But one thing that stood out to me here on these bullish calls, this bull is a crazy person. Yesterday, they bought $100,000 worth of 750 calls in Avis budget on CAR, the chart we just looked at. So they're really looking for this move to continue up throughout the morning and maybe go for that 839 level. looking for tons of continuation and momentum there. So that I found that one super interesting, very aggressive on that. But bearish puts, one of the things that's really stood out to me, and I've been bearish the semiconductor industry for quite a while, and obviously maybe a little bit too long, but Micron here has just been repeatedly been hit up by Wall Street on puts for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Typically looking at 150 to 250 days, something like that. So very bearish on Micron repeatedly in the last 2 days. Well, yesterday and the end of last week. So really starting to form a topping pattern here. Some weakness here in the MACD. So you'll notice this is a really good example of a MACD divergence. We've got an equal high here, relatively equal. But look at how much stronger this MACD is here compared to here. Same thing with the RSI, a lot of weakness. So I think that's what bulls are seeing here. Where did they put these? These are 420 and 470. So those are, yeah, so they're looking for a move down, and those will pretty much be immediately in the money. And then those 470s were basically at the money when they bought them. So those are going to stay in the money if this takes a dump. A couple of Google puts there, combined about 600,000. Those are around 200 days or so. So bears coming out there. TSM, this is one that I own puts on. Unfortunately, it was a little bit early on this move. But same look, semiconductor industry. Some whales coming in there on TSM nonstop here. All day on the 17th. And then early yesterday morning, TSM, Micron again. And look at these amounts, 400, 137, 125, just hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in bearish on these names. There are a few in here, HL. Let's take a look at HL. Not exactly sure who that is. Oh, it's a mining company. So looks like somebody's bearish on this one. Could be maybe forming a bear flag here. So not sure what they're seeing on that. That's not a setup that I normally take on HL. Hop on over to some of these flow alerts here. Any that stand out? We've got a large floor trade here on ALB. So this was also bearish. Looks like they're looking for this to run out of steam here at the top. So interesting to see how this one plays out. CHDN. This was a multi-leg. So see what they see here. Churchill Downs. Got an old trend line on that. So potentially bullish here off the bottom. We'll have to see how this isn't really an A+ setup for me. I don't love it. We've got some divergence here in the MACD and RSI showing some strength. So that's an interesting one on Churchill Downs. ASTS, one of these. Yeah, ASTS was the one I really liked yesterday. So apparently there was some bad news. I don't know if somebody was kidding, but did they screw up a rocket launch or something? But price moved down pretty quickly into the $70 level and found some support at this trend line. So great bullish look here on ASTS as long as it holds 70. I really like that. TRU. So on TRU here, TransUnion, nice setup forming here. So looking for a breakout here above 85. Looks like Equifax beat its estimates this morning, so this could be maybe a sympathy play here on TransUnion. So we have EXE. I think I looked at this one yesterday. Expand Energy Corp, and I believe that this was a bearish trade here. Yeah, so 90 puts. So they're looking for this to have a breakdown here on Expand Energy. And this is why analyst ratings are so crazy at the same time. And it's obviously not the same person, but this analyst is raising the target to 162. So all the way up here. At the same time, Wall Street is buying puts and expecting this to fall. So it's just the duality of Wall Street and kind of what they do for themselves versus what they tell you to do. I completely ignore these analyst ratings. They're some of the stupidest people out there. So what else do we have here on the dashboard? Anything? I'm running out of CoreWeave and Oclo. CoreWeave is a newer chart, so I don't love these because it's hard to do TA on these when they're not as old, but we do have a breakout here above this trend line, so this can really move. Oclo is one of the names that I really love. Great looking chart, came down into support, broke the trend line, has a ton of room to move up here. And as we get into this energy phase of the market and we start to see some of the ramifications of what happened in Iran, these energy names are really going to start to pick up. They're really volatile. They're not slow moving. So really love Oclo here. Same thing with SMR. These two are competitors in the same space. So different looking chart here. But this has tons of room to go all the way to 75. So that would be about a 6x from where it's at right now. Oclo, I don't think has percentage-wise, it's got about a 3x back to the top. But if you do expand here to 300, lots of room to move there. So these are some really good names to look at, Oclo. Another one I really like right now is SoundHound. This is an AI play. They do obviously AI in the audio space. So currently sitting at $8, has a chance to make a run at 22, 24 bucks here on SoundHound. LAC, I do have a lot of contracts in this, but long term, this is one of the better plays, lithium mining. And this mine is still being built. And so this has so much potential in the future. If you want something to hold on to for 5 or 10 years, LAC is a really great play for that. We got Next Decade. This is another one of the 3 hottest picks I had for this morning. This is a U.S. stock that works in the oil and natural gas industry here in the U.S. Got really hot because of the war. It is about to have another breakout. And when you look at the channel here, this has got the chance to go to 17, 15 bucks, depending on maybe which channel you use here. If you use these former highs, you could see about 15. So you could see a double there. I really like Next Decade. And all of these pink lines, I actually stopped drawing them after a while because there was too many. These are multi-million-dollar insider buys, 4, 5, 4, 4, 5, like just nonstop insider buying here at these levels. So that's what you really want to see, is a ton of insider conviction with really big volume like that. a $200,000 insider buy is okay, that's cool. But when somebody's spending 50 to 100 million, you know that they're really serious about it. Speaking of insider buys, Nike, love this chart. Came and retested this trend line here down at $40. It's already up to 46, and we've had a bunch of insider buys here from both their CEO and Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, who I think is on their board. And they're starting to load up down here. So big picture, really like this Nike chart. This is a name that can really hold up during recessions. So we'll see what happens to that. Let's pop back into the S&P and see if there's any reaction to Trump's speech this morning. So 8:30, this is when he came on. So nothing crazy. This is pretty typical. It's within what's already been happening this morning. So just because it's down doesn't mean that he necessarily said anything bearish. Here, maybe this was a bearish comment, but pretty typical behavior. This has just been pinned in this really boring range for the entire week so far. So maybe very first looks at maybe breakdown here. Not yet, but that's something you'd want to look at if you're day trading on ES. If it breaks below 71.60, that's a pretty bearish look on this. And on the top side, see if this can make another run at 7,200 or so. So could be flashing of kind of a fake bearish move here for a final run up. We'll have to see how this plays out. But anything below 71.50 or so is looking pretty bearish for this in the medium term. Same thing on NQ, just a couple red candles there, but nothing major. So yeah, if there's any tickers you want me to chart, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Super happy to get those charted out for you.